Allow me to be internet AF for a second, because is it just me that gets more excited about video games than literally anything else? I mean, playing them is pretty great, but that excitement that comes with what a title could be, that is some grade A good feelings. And I love everything from trying to predict plot twists and character arcs to what certain weapons, finishes, animations, etc. will feel like to control. Of course, the industry has figured out how to whip us into a focused stupor, and no other entertainment medium has such a lock-and-key approach to rolling out their next project. Literally everything in gaming is drip-fed, with NDAs, embargoes, select screenshots, and press access play events governing who sees what, when, and for how long. Just when you think you know what a game is, that can totally change. Maybe it was never the version you had in your mind, or maybe there are issues on the dev side that genuinely means a game comes up short. Either way, I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game missed opportunities we're still not over. Number 10. Metal Gear Solid 5 being painfully short of perfection. The background behind the development of Metal Gear Solid 5 is widely known. Kojima, mastermind of Metal Gear, had a massive falling out with Konami. With costs rising every day, massive chunks of the game had to be cut to make sure that it was going to be released. And the result? The best playing action game of the generation, fight me, but with a genuinely incomplete story. Metal Gear Solid 5 is fantastic and full of mystery until it falls apart towards the end. The story is engaging, gameplay mechanics are superb, and it looks absolutely stunning. Then it happens. You're hit with a ton of rehashed missions that you've already done, the story fades into nothingness, and the majority of us were left completely unsatisfied as the credits roll. Turns out an entire chapter which was set to tie everything up, revealing what happened to Liquid Snake's Eli, was originally planned to be included with the game, but instead it was cut and packaged into a mini documentary that comes with the collector's edition instead. This unfinished cutscene literally solves the otherwise timeline-breaking issue of having a Metal Gear robot and two villains on the loose for decades in between games. It is fundamental to the story, and even in its unfinished state was pretty damn close to what we needed for the whole thing to make sense. If Kojima could have just wangled another few months, it could have all come together, but instead MGS5 will forever remain infuriatingly close to perfect. Number 9. Microsoft acquiring Rare instead of Nintendo. Imagine for a second that it wasn't Microsoft who bought Rare Studios, but Nintendo. Just imagine the plethora of games that we would have had by now. With such a massive back catalogue of beloved IPs, Microsoft was seemingly sitting on a goldmine of potential. Instead, their choices have been head-scratching at best. Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts basically stripped out everything people loved from the original and replaced it with vehicle building. Then we got a Perfect Dark sequel, prequel thing, which was decent for the launch of the 360, but it was nothing to write home about. Viva Pinata was 2006, and then besides Killer Instinct, a whole bunch of nothing happened for about 13 years, as Rare were put to work making motion control games for both Kinects, alongside Xbox 360 avatars and accessories. They finally broke free and made Sea of Thieves, which had some nice ideas and is a damn fine 20 minutes, but it's nothing on the classic Rare titles of old. If Nintendo had snapped up Rare and continued the momentum that they had from the N64, who knows how many industry-shaking bangers we would have got. Number 8. Half-Life 3. An arbitrary inclusion at this point, but the Half-Life series trajectory really is stupid, to be honest. Like, why deliberately end your game on a cliffhanger, have the money to do the final part in the trilogy, talk about the fact fans want it over and over every single year, and then just never make that happen? Every single year when the likes of E3 or the Game Awards roll around, there's a little hope that swells up inside all of the Half-Life fandom. Maybe, just maybe, Valve will return to gaming proper, and finally announce Half-Life 3, if only to make good on an entire fandom hanging by a plot thread. Maybe the company is just too scared of not living up to the hype, but in a world where Shenmue 3 and Final Fantasy VII's remake have both come true, it's kinda the only big this'll never happen style thing left to happen. Well, that and another Timesplitters. Number 7. All of Mass Effect Andromeda. After being thoroughly respected from top to bottom, BioWare have now had a rough few years, and even the return of Mass Effect was a painful disappointment. While Andromeda did have some decent mechanics and solid combat, it was a terrible rush job. At release, Mass Effect Andromeda was filled with so many bugs. If the Mass Effect IP isn't completely dead, let's just hope that the next generation treats it with the respect that it deserves. Number 6. No Man's Sky sabotaging its own launch. Straight up, the No Man's Sky of today is phenomenal. A technical showcase of procedurally generated planets, creatures, and environmental effects, backed by solid vehicle combat, survival mechanics, and gorgeous visuals. At launch, though, it was this. No Man's Sky should have been the encapsulation of why we need a newer generation of console hardware. To push boundaries, try new ideas, and experiment with game loops previously thought impossible. Instead, it represented the current generation, but in the worst way possible. Disappointment at launch, an unfinished feel, a reliance on patches, and a whole bunch of lies told in the run-up to release. If No Man's Sky launched in the state that it's in now, it would be regarded as one of the true greats. And though, again, I am and have always been a huge fan, there is no denying the missed opportunity of capitalizing on such an insane amount of hype. Number 5. PT/Silent Hills being cancelled. Released as a demo on the PlayStation Store, PT had you go through a creepy corridor on a loop, piecing together a mystery as increasingly unsettling things started happening all around you. It turned out, a mysterious experiment by none other than Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. Despite it being filled with complicated things to solve, gamers found out within a few hours that PT was a teaser for a larger project, the reboot of Silent Hill, now called Silent Hills. Destined to star Norman Reedus and directed by Kojima himself, Silent Hills was a bold, more psychological take on the long-running franchise. However, all we ever got was this very small teaser, before Kojima's big fallout with Konami happened and the project was shelved. Since then, PT has been completely pulled from the PlayStation Network. Konami wants us to forget about it altogether, but it's very hard to do when this could have been perhaps one of the greatest horror video games ever created. Thankfully, Hideo Kojima and Norman Reedus still managed to work together on Death Stranding, which has hopefully carried forward some of the ideas that Kojima was going to use in Silent Hills. Number 4, there's never been a great Superman game. For decades, the idea of a Superman game almost cancelled itself out. How do you avoid making him overpowered? How could there even be challenge over time without nerfing him or his powers and dooming the character? Well, maybe that is the case, but we also have like 80 years worth of comics to draw from. We just need a developer to get creative and stick to the source material. To that end, a lot of people thought and still think that Rocksteady are working on a Superman game. They've confirmed that's not the case, but until we see what's actually going down, there's always going to be a chance. With both Spider-Man and Batman having their own incredible games courtesy of Rocksteady and Insomniac, isn't it about time that the most famous and well-known superhero on the planet has his own grade A video game too? Number 3. Brutal Legend squandering its massive potential. Brutal Legend is single-handedly the most disappointed I've ever been with a video game. Literally, I remember sitting watching the screen with my mouth open, not believing the gameplay sections this thing actually had versus what was advertised. Because we had Double Fine, one of the most renowned studios in the world, partnering up with legendary singer/actor/all-round legend Jack Black to make a game about heavy metal, set in an open-world fantasy universe inspired by 80s metal album covers. It was a metal fan's dream, even including the voices of superstars like Lemmy, Ozzy Osbourne, and Rob Halford. Now, it's not that it's a bad game, all things considered, but Brutal Legend was advertised as a hack-and-slash God of War type action game, when in reality it was more of an 80-20 split with some god-awful strategy elements. Now, I adore strategy games, but here you are still trying to play an action game while commanding units, zooming in and out, trying to micromanage areas under attack, etc. in the clumsiest way possible. He is hoping that Double Fine's recent acquisition by Microsoft at least lets them have another stab at such a brilliant idea. Also, just saying, but add Ghost to this thing. Have Cardinal Copia dancing alongside Eddie or Papa Nile doling out a quest to retrieve his saxophone, and meteoric sales would achieve themselves. Number 2. Leaving the Chrono Trigger IP to die. If you've played the original Chrono on SNES, you know why this is such a big deal. One of the finest JRPGs ever created, it features time travel, multiple branching storylines, great characters, and a real-time-ish battle system. For its time, it was incredibly innovative, full of twists, turns, and memorable moments. Since then, though, other than Chrono Cross on the PS1, which wasn't as well received, this IP has been completely inactive. And it's just such a shame. Imagine what Square Enix could do with a fully 3D rendered Chrono Trigger sequel starring the original cast. Hell, I would take a 2.5D version given how well something like Octopath Traveler turned out. And number 1, Sleeping Dogs 2 being cancelled. Developed by United Front Games, this Hong Kong set Eastern take on the GTA formula came with snappy arcadey shooting and a much more satisfying melee combat system than anything Rockstar have ever done. Here you could roundhouse kick people in slow motion or bury their heads in a restaurant's fish tank. It was martial arts cinema made controllable, and I adored it. Thankfully, the game had immense success, and United Front quickly sketched out a massively ambitious sequel. Doubling playable characters so that you'd be able to tackle missions with the help of a dirty cop called Henry Fang, there would also be an optional cop minigame controlled on your phone that let you allocate units and respond to crimes, in turn affecting the game world in real time. Vehicle races, horde modes, fight clubs, and factional warfare, everything about Sleeping Dogs 2 sounded like the perfect expansion. But sadly, United Front went bust, and these ideas never came to fruition. As Sleeping Dogs started life as True Crime Hong Kong, he is hoping that someday we do get a continuation of the one crime franchise other than Mafia that could hold a candle to the might of Grand Theft Auto. And that's my selection of missed opportunities in gaming that, to be honest, I'm still completely annoyed about. Let me know your favorites down in the comments below, and please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.